Well, hello there. Good morning and welcome once again if you're returning, and you're very welcome if it's your first time here to my little arty corner on YouTube, on the internet. I have lots of little arty corners actually on social media, and you can find those in the description box below this video. January is the month for the Fragment of Your Imagination challenge by the 7F5R Facebook group by the, can't remember the names of the people who have put together this challenge. But the challenge is about taking a fragment, one of the fragments in Zentangle, and working with variations on it and putting it into a grid or reticulum as they call it. A fragment is, in Zentangle terms, is the basic cell, the basic part of a repeating pattern. So it's that one part that you repeat again and again to get a pattern from. So if I take as an example, I'll move those out the way because they're my ones from a couple of days ago. If I take as an example this fragment, which is a variation of well, and I pop it into this grid, then each one of these is the same in this case. You can mirror them, almost like you imagine you're looking in a mirror and how they flip round, or rotate them. Here I've just kept them all the same because I could. And it creates this repeating pattern. And that's the essence of all repeating patterns, is that you have this one cell that you repeat throughout with the use of a grid. Either in that case, it was a simple square grid. You could use triangular. You could use other forms. I mean, it can get quite complicated with repeated patterns for things like fabric and so on, because you can have unusual shapes to get things to go together. But my head doesn't work that way. I'm happy with squares and triangles and rectangles and even weird shapes like parallelograms now. So we're up to day 4. So this was day 1, day 2. For some reason, I don't have day 3, but I do because it's this side. And with day 3, I have added some colour to some of these and some very clumsily added metallics as well. I was playing around with watercolour. Yes, I know, watercolour. But I saw a video on YouTube yesterday by someone who, if I remember by the time I get round to posting this video, I'll put the link to it underneath, that suggested, the woman doing it suggested using mixed media paper for learning watercolours on, because it's a lot more forgiving than 100% cotton watercolour paper, and it's easier to move things, get blends and so on. And part of me thinks, yeah, well, I'll be happy with that in the future. So as this was mixed media paper, I thought I'd give it a go, and I actually picked quite a few things up there, and so I'm quite happy with some of these. Some of them have got like, I don't know if I can get this one to show, but this one here you'll catch as I move it around, sort of like glimmers and glints, and you may do with that the pinky purple blob there. But some of them it's just plain metallics, and they've bled out into the water and so on. I'm really quite pleased with this here. Now this may not amaze people, but for me to get some kind of colour gradient where it looks almost like there's a glow inside or there's light streaming up, I'm really quite pleased with that. The colours are yucky, but I got there. So don't ask. So this was yesterday's, and I did that. Today's is it's this fragment. Now I don't know if this is actually today's fragment or whether it's just a fragment on the list, because I didn't look at what the day was on the information sheets for the challenge. So I'm just going with it, because apparently that's part of the whole challenge as well. You can follow the days, you know, day by day with the fragments that are given. If you don't like that fragment, you can use a different one. If you want to completely swap the order around, that's fine as well. So I'm just going with the flow of whatever happens with me, because there's no guarantees. So this is Fragment J13, and that would be found in the Zentangle primer or primer, a book full of basic ideas about Zentangles and basic patterns, and this idea as well of fragments and reticula. This one is a triangular fragment, and I've drawn plenty of triangular fragments this week already in the last couple of days. I've just drawn some triangles in here to start with, as well as put my heading on. And it's basically, I'll draw one next door. So the way I would draw it is I'd start with these shapes, which is like an upside down V, a curvy V. And you draw them on each side and try and keep them fairly similar. And then you can draw this circle, this seed in or orb in. And you have to imagine how the circle would be drawn behind, which is quite nice. So, you know me, I'm trying to explain how I create variations, and my first instinct is just to make a simple change or a simple addition. So here I'm just adding a repeat of these shapes here, and I'm not going to do all of them, but I'm going to put variations of what you could do. You could leave them as they are, you could fill it in black, or you could fill it in with some pattern of lines. I've chosen to have lines that radiate out from the point out of that shape we added, of this, you know, sort of like curvy V out to the edge of the fragment. And that gives it a different feel. The black is very solid, very graphic, very dramatic, and this is a bit more subtle. And of course we can do things behind this as well. So if I take this, the simplest way to fill this space in, or one of the simplest ways, is just to add lots of aura lines here, which would work. You could fill it in completely in black, but then I think I'd want more of a gap here. So perhaps what I would do for that is actually add a second aura. See, I'm already adding more than I expected to this one fragment of ideas. It's like that. And then I try it out. Now for the one I showed you, this one, because I'd used a fairly bare fragment in my list, which is over here, so I'd chosen to use this fragment, which hasn't got a lot in it. I mean, it looks like it has because I've used colour instead of pattern to fill it in. I wanted to add pattern on this one because I'm trying to keep things black and white, sort of. I'm bound to add colour at some point. So I just used, I had a corner here, so I just tried out my idea of adding aura echo lines around the circles in the corner, just to see what it would look like, to see if it would look okay. And I thought, yeah, I'll go with it. So I tried it there to see if I wanted to go with it before I added it in ink, and went, oh no, I don't like that. So that's what I did. So there's no harm in doing that. So essentially what I'm doing here is just trying things out, giving myself a whole visual catalogue of ideas to work from. Okay, so we've got this we can do. Okay, let me do the same kinds of shape. And let's see what else we can do. Well, on all of these, I've got quite large orbs there, haven't I? So how about if we pop a small one that's just being grasped by this? This would be easier to draw perhaps if you put the orb in, and then you can get the points to show. So you can get the points to meet the orb rather than try to get the orb to meet the points, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. So to do it this way, I think you get a neater finish. Now this is a distinctly different fragment, I know that, but it's how how you go from one to another. But I do want to do some other things, so I'm going to do the same thing here with this one. And I'm going to fill this up with orbs. Oh, excuse me. Just like that. And I'm going to fill those little spaces with black, because again that adds that rather dramatic contrast, high contrast. So we've gone from that to this, well, to this, then to this. So I'll leave this one more or less as it is, so you can see that difference. Even, and this is an 05 micron because I'm drawing quite large scales, but even using the same size pen to do those aura parts gives it a different feel, because I used an 02 there. So already, how many variations? Well, that's the original. So I've got 1, 2, 3 with those, 4, 5 there, 6, 7. And what, within, well, as it stands now, this video is about 11, well, nearly 12 minutes long. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a cluster here so that I can add these shapes in that way. I'm not entirely sure I like that, but I just thought I'd give it a go. And again, it's similar to this, except it's not. It's quite a bit different. But I can pop a circle and orb behind it to contain that. It actually looks like an ammonia molecule. And I'm fine with that. In fact, I'm making such a mess of this. I think I will just colour it in black. So now we have an ammonia molecule. And again, I like doing this because it helps to define those separate areas. Helps them to stand out. If you're going to use colour, well, if you use colour and shadow and highlights, then you can help get them to stand out a lot easier. Okay, let's have a look. On the sheet for today, it said this is a fragment full of hidden potential. Well, I happen to think that every fragment is full of hidden potential. So let's have a look. I'll stay with this one, but instead of using these kinds of shapes, how about if I do this kind of shape instead? Same idea. Again, I know this, I'm sure this is a fragment as well, but it's just how you can change the original one to turn it into something different, especially if you don't have a copy of the primer to refer to, or if you're like me, I just think, oh, what can I do with that? I quite like that. So we've got this here, and I'm going to pop a little circle in the middle. I really do need to get a new 05 out. So that's slightly different. Let's have a look. How else could we change these shapes? Well, perhaps instead of having them quite broad and wide, how about if we just start them from the middle? And have them smaller in shapes, you know, towards the middle of the line, so not starting from the corners and out, so we get quite a large area of that. shape they enclose, these wings almost of these pieces going over. So that is a definite, you know, that is that altered just slightly, just by doing something like this. It just gives that very different kind of feel. Again, I'll pop one of those in just so you can see what it's like, and I'll pop a black one over. And of course the opportunity is here then for adding things behind this. I'm tempted to or the triangle, because I think that's rather good. In fact, let me do that all the way around this, because that works quite nicely. And again with this, I think those radiating lines would look quite nice, but so would a simple black. But also this just left as it is. Okay, let's have a look. Now, instead of doing V shapes, how about if we do parallelograms? So these lines are parallel to the sides of that original triangle, and these are roughly equidistant from the points on each side, and just join them up. That would be another way of drawing them. But we can certainly draw an orb in there, and just draw these. So instead of having pointy flaps holding the orb in place, we've now got this kind of thing going on, different shape. What about using semicircles? We'll go mad with circles. So there we have that inner orb, but these could be almost crescent moons, couldn't they? So I will fill these in black because it will help separate these edge flaps, these placeholders, the orb holder in place there. And I think this would look rather fun with these black triangles coming out here. Yeah, I could have done it with this pen first off. I realise that when I do something, I think, why have I changed my pen? There we go. So that helps to define that. So quite simple yet again. And I could just pop Nora there, that helps. I think it would help here because I haven't got anything in the background. So another way of adding interest. And with this theme, so the shapes could we have? Well, we could have squares or rectangles coming out, because why not? And we could make it almost like a jewel setting, perhaps with a couple on each side. This will work out interesting now, I'm sure. I think with this I'd be tempted to draw the orb in pencil first, so I can get these holders in the right place. Let me have a go on one. Let me have a look. Let's draw. Say drawing first in pencil, so you know where that is, and it's easier then perhaps to pop these shapes in some kind of way that you find pleasing. Not the best perhaps, but sometimes you have to try things out to see if they'll work. It's another one. I think what what was I thinking of then? Oh, yeah. It's almost like the tops of hearts. I'm just holding something in place there. Again, not so sure about that one, but until you try something, you don't know. And as I think I said yesterday, all it is a tiny bit of paper, a little bit of ink, and a little bit of time. Okay, so we've got things like this going on. Okie dokes. So that's changing those flaps. But can we change the orb in any way? So I'm going to just draw these in, the original ones again, and I'm wondering whether that changes it just ever so slightly. So instead of having nice curved edges, we've now got almost like petal shapes. And especially if I pop that in the middle, it looks like there's a flower held in there, possibly. So that's quite interesting. And again, if I draw that, I'm going to pop the orb in first in pencil. And instead of having these coming along the sides, what about if we have them coming up from the corners? So we're changing the position of those V shapes to the corners and then popping the orb in behind them. So that works quite nicely. And of course you can change the shapes that come out there. Again, I'm going to draw the orb in pencil so I make sure I don't have a weird shape orb, but it could just be that we have simple V shapes would work quite nicely. As would, I'm sure, pencil. As I pick up every pen in front of me. Actually, I wonder if I could get this a bit bigger. I can, because I think that these kinds of shapes almost like crescent moon would work. I can just darken the corners there as well. So that'll be quite nice. I think because I've got that nice border here, I can fill that in black, but I also think I'd want to pop an aura around like that. So lots of things to consider. Okay, then I'm going to draw the orb in first, and I'm going to think about doing this. All right, okay. I'm going to create like a wave here. So I'll do that again. I'm going to go up, around, in and back down. So curve up, around as if to make a circle, stop a little way along and then just curve it back down to the corner. So I'm getting some interesting shapes here. And interestingly, the way that I've drawn this, because I've been a complete idiot, I've gone and drawn all of the lines in. Let's try that one again, is it? Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll draw these in first, because that one has ended up a bit of a disaster, really. I can fix it if I was to colour these in completely black. And that would give me that contrast, I think. Oh, what an idiot. I say that, perhaps it was serendipitous to make me do this. But that really is quite dramatic. And that sphere, orb, bead, gem, whatever in the middle would look absolutely fantastic if it was done in gold, I think, or silver or copper or some other sparkly colour. Okay, let's try this one again. Why am I turning this around? I don't know. So let's do this. So it's up and down. So up and down. So I've got those kinds of shapes. Okay, let's have a look. I'm just popping that now in pencil so I can get that shape in there. And to help make sense of this, I do think I need to aura these. This is quite an unusual, bold move for me, using such a different shape. But I think it's because in the previous fragments, there hasn't really been that opportunity, has there, to make use of such shapes. I could have on this one, but it would have changed it too much. Let me go back to the other ones I've done. Have a look. Then this one, I have done some changing of the lines, but I think if I changed them that much, it wouldn't work because of the space, perhaps. It's similar to these, actually, that I did for poke leaf. So it is sort of poke leafy, but without the stem. So, you know, we have alternatives. We have things we can do. So, the world is our lobster, as we can say. Okay, so how about if I do that kind of shape? I may regret this because I may run out of space. No, I'm not going to. So there we go. They say full of possibilities. And this one, I think this would need these filling in just to help make sense of it. I've done it with black, you could do it with colour and perhaps just popping. And I think these all would benefit from a little circle in the middle, perhaps just to help with that sense of circularity, or orbularity, if you prefer. And again, this one, I'm going like this. It's more of a doily kind of thing, isn't it? Folded up doily almost. Okay. Just triangles so far. Haven't done any other shapes. But from other sheets I've done, everything that I do here is transferable to a sheet. How about something a bit different? So an N shape and two spirals that start at the bottom of the leg and up and out, bottom of the leg up and out. So let's see how that will work out. Bearing in mind I do need to leave some space for that orb in the middle. And there it is. It is there. It's here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw in auras for the corners, and then I'm going to colour this in to hopefully bring out that orbiness in the middle. Okay, so there's that. Not as clear as the others, but the idea is there. It's the same kind of thing going on. Bearing this in mind, I could pop a spiral, or what do you call it? You could draw a muka here. So this essentially is what this is. And I am going to draw these lines in. And if I'd thought ahead, I could have joined them up without this bit here, but that's something perhaps for another time. And we can pop the circle in there. So that would work. Okay. I'm trying to think what else could work here. We've got semicircles, haven't we? Yes. So let's have a quick look at a couple of different shapes with this. So I'm just going to do the basic orb we've already done, or fragment, but in a square. So that can be varied any of the ways I've done already. And of course, it's easy to change the shape and the position of these and how far towards the middle they go. Oh, what I didn't do was use a more curvy version of that V shape, so it's more like a hill, and that would work quite nicely as well. Yeah, I meant to do that up here, but I didn't do it, did I? So let me pop one in. So let's have a hill in the middle. There we go. So that works nicely as well. And just to check, let's do some of the parallelograms. I think they would need to go fairly far down into you can see I'm starting sort of almost equidistant from the corner along each edge, and about the same distance up to get this in. There we go, and that would pop that one in there as well. The other thing I haven't done is to add any decoration to that orb in the middle, because it's possible to fill this in with all kinds of patterns. Perhaps these would lend themselves to it a bit more. So for this one, I could fill it in with, for example, print on. And if you've been trying out the embossing techniques that were shown in the recent 12 days of Zentangle. I was going to say 7 days of 12 tangle, which wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. I had to do some warm-up drawing before I do this warm-up drawing this morning. It's my fingers and thumb especially are suffering on my right hand. So I spent yesterday evening doing some amigurumi crocheting, and I'm crocheting a pterodactyl, which is fun, but boy does it causes me problems with my joints, so I'm much better doing much looser and larger scale amigurumi, crocheting than amigurumi. But I said I'd do that for a friend, make them a pterodactyl, because it turns out pterodactyls are our favourite prehistoric creatures. They're not dinosaurs. Dinosaurs didn't fly, nor were dinosaurs found in the water, but they existed around the same time. Okay, so that's a different way of approach, is of using a pattern inside. And of course you can get as ornate or as complicated as you want. You know, some of them, they're perfect for filling in like flowers, I suppose. Or with a wheel shape like this, but then these can be turned into petals or orange fragments. Or you could draw a flower in there instead of. Now that's a different one. By accident, because my fingers aren't working well. So this would be a different kind of shape, more like a houndstooth, but you've got one long side going to a point and then down, and they're more or less the same kind of size, shape and position here. So again, we've got the orb in there. So that's because my fingers didn't obey my command well over here. You can see this one's a bit of an odd shape with a curvy and a straight edge. So there we are. And just to get that, enhance that feeling of having a circle in the middle, that aura really does help, especially if you're going to put a pattern or anything on the outside. So here, it's more like a wheel, but that's fine. And you could put any kind of shape behind here, I suppose. I'm going to add a flower. So this one, and then that orb shape, like that. So that's possible as well. And of course that would work in these, you know. Let's have a look. So I'll put the flower points in, and then I'll add the orb behind the flower, and that would work. It's not so easy to see on that one because I've drawn it quite titchy, but it does work. It's little drawings sometimes, little quick drawings of proof of concept. So we've done those. What about other shapes? Well, the new fragment shape is a seed shape. So how would this work? Well, let's pop this kind of shape in. Oh my gosh, this reminds me so much of La Tene patterns. Celtic, early Celtic art, Iron Age basically. How lovely is that? So use that seed shape again, and perhaps instead of the pointy bit we'll have that hill shape as well. So that works as well. So just about anything you want to pop in, any of these variations would work there as well, I think. And I haven't finished with variations either, have I? Is it 40 minutes? Okay, I'm just going to get my other sheet to remind me of the shapes of fragments I've used. Or what about my weird ones, like a strange kind of parallelogram? Well, a wonky square, perhaps, would be a better way of describing it. But of course it'll work in its basic form. So I'll try these with the basic form, and if any variations come to me as I'm doing them, then I'll add them. What about a polygon kind of shape? This will be a bit more challenging. We can get that shape there. And I think I must probably, let me have a look. This is what I think I may do, is put 2 around that longer edge. And perhaps, oh gosh, how can we... This isn't going to be an easy one to fill now, is it? We're going to have an oval orb in the middle instead of a circular one, which is fine. It's very clumsy, but I guess it's possible to do, isn't it? If I just cross hatch behind, just to give an idea of how this would be, because again you'd have to add shadow, highlight colour, cross hatching, whatever way you wish to do it. We'll try that again. Let me have a look at putting an orb right in the middle. And that most probably would be the way to do it there. It doesn't lend itself easily to that kind of shape. I don't think. Semicircle or dome shape, it would do, because it'd be, if I pop the circle in, then this shape, because we can have a nice one of those there, then you could have just one at the top, or smaller version like that. So with this one, these, can you see how I've made that a shorter distance than this one? So it's almost like I've split this arc up and just put that little bump that way, and that would work quite nicely. Reminds me very much of Gothic windows, I suppose. And again, it would depend how you add borders and backgrounds, how well it stands out, I suppose. I think black would help, as would perhaps an outside border as well, and that inner circle. Sometimes I think that inner circle is what gives that clue that we've got something here that is repeated. I mean, that actually works nicely, is to have perhaps nested circles. That's a very clumsy version, but with that I'd want to draw the circles before I draw, before I do anything else. I'd draw them in pencil and then ink them in. So that would actually work quite nicely there. Again, it's having this dramatic black to help to separate things or lift things up. So that would help greatly. Hexagonal shapes, well, no prizes for guessing. Yep, they'll work. In fact, they make a very lovely kind of flower pattern with those pieces, don't they? Getting the shape in is a bit more difficult because I should have drawn it in first, really. Let me try again, because some of these aren't sticking out as far as others. So if I draw that, draw my inner orb. It's a benzene ring. It is, it's benzene. Yeah, you can take the chemist out of the lab. You can't take the lab out of the chemist, or, you know, the scientist out of the lab, but you can't take the science out of the scientist, as it were. That works better. That does work. And these double lines are very much needed then to help lift that out. But again, black really does help. And that little one in the middle. So that would help, that these would work as well. In the same way pentagons would. If you're going to be brave enough to do pentagons. But again, I would draw the circle in first, so that you know that you're enclosing it in these bits that come out. So that works. Okay, a teardrop shape is really like a triangle. It's almost like you've got three sides, and I think that is the best approach for it. So that would work. In fact, that is dead cute. I like that. And I absolutely know I've not exhausted the possibilities of creating these shapes here, or even changing the shape of the seed inside. A kite shape. Well, of course that will work, but I think it will work best with a different shape bead or gem inside. So that works nicely. And once the pencil lines are erased, it'll be a lot more obvious what that is, but those lines help. So that would work. I'm not so sure about some of the more wibbly wobbly shapes, but if we take one of these shapes, and again, because it's rectangular, you're not going to have a circular orb in it, but we can do it this way with an oval orb. And again, we could use a circular fragment for this, but with circles you can put as many of these shapes in as you like. I am going to draw a circle in pencil within the circle, just to make sure that I get at least overlap with that. So we could do this with 4 of these roughly. And that creates a little windowy thing. I had something similar, didn't I, for the is it this one? Yeah, I suppose that is something quite similar, isn't it, in its way? It's different, but it's similar. Very much a Gothic window. I'm talking about Gothic architecture here in, you know, in the Middle Ages. Put a window frame around it, and that's really quite pretty. But you could do the circle with just three of these and the orb going in that way, and we could just pop those in like that. The other thing you can do with these flaps that I've just realised is, rather than auraing them like this, you could also do the aura like this. So that you don't have, here it's attached to that, the outside frame. Here it's floating inside, so you've got a smaller version of the same shape. And you could do that with any of these, like this. And with some, you could almost make them windows through to the circle. I can't see any I can do this with at this moment, because you'd need the circle very large and these also sticking out well into the circle, but you could have it so you've got like a window into the circle here, which could be quite interesting and fun. Yeah, so you get that there, especially if we do something like just shade these bits. Just cross hatch for now. But you get the idea that then it looks like you've got wire or an open frame over them, which will show that through. Just quickly, other things to do with this orb inside is I'm going to do Luca's spiraling out like that. We could decorate them with just simple circles. Could have arches or flowers in them, petals, and then have it a bit like crescent moon and so on. So it's endless what you could do here. It really, really is. And I've just about run out of space. And my mind is ticking over lots of possibilities and nothing's coming to the forefront again. It's one of those things where these are just literally a place to start from, not a place to, not an exhaustive list of possibilities. It's like they're a page full of possibilities to show that there's so much you could do, so much more, that this is something that's, excuse me, it's an ongoing development and exploration and discovery, and just trying things out to see what happens. I'm just having a look back to check that I haven't missed out any shapes. I think I've covered most of the basic ones I've done there. The ones I haven't done is the Pangea, because I don't, try it and see for yourself, but I don't think it would necessarily work. But all the things you could fill this circle in, especially if you border it, holly bore or any kind of pattern really. You could do the use curved lines, contour lines, as if it's a ball, and make it a grid and fill it in with black and white squares, op art. So you really get that feeling of an orb inside. But there's just so much possibility. So I really do hope that this has helped you. Excuse my scribbling here. I've got my drawing board here on top of the cork mat, because yesterday the cork mat was just that bit too soft for me to enjoy drawing on. And if I'm using my drawing board and I'm watching television and or whatever, and something comes up, I tend to scribble things on here, or on a shopping list. So it tends to get a bit on the scuzzy kind of side, but I just got it out because I didn't think about getting the cutting mat out, which I could have done. But there we are. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, look out later for social media where I'll have completed this and started adding some, I'll fill these little gaps in perhaps, and I've got the possibility of putting lots more triangles in here, haven't I? Yeah, there was a plan. I may not, see how things get on, and I hope it helps and inspires and shows that you can do things. It's just simple changes and then just trying things to see how they work. So until I see you again, which must probably be day 5 of Fragments of Your Imagination, that's tomorrow. Although tomorrow is also Wednesday, which means it's Template Wednesday on a Thursday, Template Thursday on a Wednesday, day I draw. We'll see what happens. But until then, take care, look after yourselves. It's 3 degrees Celsius here outside apparently. I haven't got the heating on because I'm still overly hot from nighttime hot sweats or hot flushes. But that's pretty chilly. It really is. And we did have warnings of snow showers on my computer just now. It's not, but so keep warm if you're somewhere cold. If you're somewhere hot, keep cool. And if you're at the right temperature, lucky you. I mean that in the nicest way. So take care until then. Bye-bye for now.